One set of comments at this time, and it regards kind of a mini update on the discussion regarding the replacement of the turf fields at the middle school. At the last meeting, or at the June 2nd meeting, I had indicated some steps that were going to be taken, and part of those steps was to take a look at two firms that test turf fields, and Kelly and I interviewed both of those firms. We are checking their background and their fee structure. I can't say that I was completely satisfied with the interview process, so we will be seeking other firms or agencies that will take a look at testing the existing fields. In terms of possible site visits, Kelly did speak with the assistant superintendent at East Meadows Schools regarding the natural grass fields there on their campuses, and we also had John Palma speak with their staff that maintains the fields, and we have not made a visit there. It was the end of the school with many graduations, grade promotions, etc. And there's some organic infill installations that are getting ready to be installed, so we do want to take a look at those. We are continuing to do research, taking a look at peer-reviewed articles, any technical reports that we come across, or any testimony before any legislative committees or subcommittees. Only preliminarily have generated a list of contacts or list of experts, possibility of contacting them for establishing an interview. Typically there's a phone interview and then the opportunity for them to come and address the board and or community if it's in the form of a hearing structure. And then in terms of a schedule, there's been a lot of discussion in terms of other aspects of board operations, and that July and August are not the best times to trying to hold public meetings, etc. So the public comment period on the turf fields or the replacement process needs to occur sometime in the fall, so that everybody's back from their various vacations, and so that everybody has a chance to weigh in on that. And so that's, just as a mini update, that's what has taken place since the briefing to the board or to the public on June 2nd. That's all I have for superintendent comments.
Can I ask a question about this?
Sure.
Dr. Adams, thank you for the update regarding turf fields. Are we still considering Crumb rubber as an option?
Amani, the task that I have is to generate a report for the board that goes over the health concerns, that goes over synthetic turf fields, that goes over the natural grass turf fields, that provides an opportunity for expert testimony, and that provides an opportunity for community input, whether in an in-person type format or via some sort of survey instrument, or where they can write in. And then from that report, it's ultimately the board's decision to make regarding the replacement of those fields.
And my next question is, you were not satisfied with the two firms that would do testing for our current fields. Have we contacted the Rochester agency that I pulled out at your request?
The Rochester agency, the contact there is, I've not received a call back on that. The person that I talked to, I don't believe was a scientist of sorts, indicated that I would get a call back. I will have to say that we have had a holiday, and maybe those folks are on vacation too. So hopefully, maybe by August 18th, I'll have something back from them.
So we're reaching out to them as well?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And then my next question is, I mean, again, you know, concerns about the validity of the testing in general and what we're accomplishing with that. But I expected us to be moving a little faster with getting some sort of another type of vote going after the first vote, you know, did not go through, so that we can move on with replacing the current fields, and that would be the focus, replacing them as quickly as possible with the safest possible product. I see that we kind of like, you know, stalled a little bit, and I understand summer is not the time for things to happen quickly, but I think this is urgent enough to move on. And, you know, you reported that, you know, there were steps to be taken, but I find we haven't made much progress, so hence I'm concerned, you know, how long we're taking to resolve this.
Briefly, my response would be with a decision that perhaps could be between $2 and $2.5 million, depending on the surface that gets replaced. That's a significant decision that I believe that the community should weigh in on.
Of course.
The conversations that I've had with the natural grass installers said that they're not going to be able to have the stadium field installed in a timely fashion, because it does require the architect to draft the plans, and the architect fee alone on that exceeds $100,000. And so in either case, you know, if it was synthetic fields, crumb rubber, whatever you want to call it, or natural grass, none of the fields, well, the natural grass would not be installed to where it would be usable for this fall. So realistically, the timetable, but because of that information, that feedback, our timetable does get elongated, and now we can have a very thoughtful, deliberative process where we get input from a variety of people.
I think that's really important too.
Of course.
You know, of course, not to rush it and make sure that we've looked into every possibility, and you know, have the public forums in the fall, which is probably the best time to do it, and then you know, make a more informed decision, because it is a big decision. It is a lot of money, so I don't necessarily begrudge the time it's taking. And of course, the end of the school year in July is a difficult time of year for people to get together. So I don't have an issue with the time frame.
Very importantly, what experts are we reaching out to in order to, you know, share with the community the facts about these options that we are looking at? Which experts are we looking at?
Amani, I don't have a list of names before me, but I'm taking a look at our toxicologists. I'm taking a look at chemical engineers, people that understand the impact that these fields, that the existing fields would have on students, and discussing this with our architecture firm, which also employs an engineer to tell us a little bit about taking care of the fields, no matter which type the district goes to. But I don't have any names for
Do you mind sharing those names with us, Dr. Adams? Because I would be interested in checking their credentials.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. You asked me the criteria, I believe, and
No.
Those are the types of people that I'm looking at.
Because a chemical engineer, you know, respectfully does not understand medical hazards to children. So I want to make sure that we have the right people in these panels.
Yeah,
I'd like to check into them, just like you've been very thoroughly saying, send me credentials of people you could send, you know, that could come and talk to the board as well as to the community. So I think we should collaborate on that and simultaneously check their credentials. Because again, you know, the turf companies do list experts in their brochures that claim safety. And when you go look at the statements, some sections are taken out of context. Some people are not really qualified to be saying what they're saying. So I'd like to make sure.
Amani, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And we do thoroughly vet the people that we are looking at. And it is interesting because there are certain public interest groups out there that advocate only one position. And it was interesting, one that's anti almost everything. Anti-turf fields, anti-Wi-Fi, anti-cell phones, anti-bottled water. And so I think it's very important to take a look at the organization and the people that work for the organization. In terms of the chemical engineer, I think that is of value, especially when it's an MIT-trained engineer that also happens to have a PhD in toxicology, because she is very cognizant of the composition of the materials that go into these fields. And because of her chemical engineering background, I think she would be very articulate in explaining.
Is this the
positions.
MIT graduate? Is this the MIT graduate? I've seen articles.
It is an MIT graduate.
Yeah, she's claimed knowledge in an area she's not an expert in, so we need to talk about that because she's a nutritionist. We also had gotten testimonial from the American Academy of Public Health Center at Cornell University. I would imagine they're not a group that is, to be undermined, because they speak for this nation in terms of public health hazards that children and youth are exposed to. So this is the mecca of public health in pediatrics in the United States, not to be messed with. We also received a letter from Assemblywoman Ellen Jaffe, who happens to have a position in our assembly as the environmental committee chairperson. It's on everybody's desk. She's pleading with us not to consider this material. Again, not somebody that I would undermine with her credentials and very strong record that we all value. So the letter's on everyone's desk, and I hope you can read it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Dr. Adams?
No.
Okay, public participation.